So I just wanted to do a really quick follow-up on a remote viewing I did yesterday, and I try to tune in to Donald Trump a couple times a week as a remote viewer, and I wanted to talk a little bit about what it feels like to be in his energy. So imagine if you were in his situation, what would be going on? He is somebody, it feels like, who needs a lot of noise in his life. And the noise, the loudness, keeping the TVs on, all of the distractions, they help him deal with these dark thoughts that start to settle in when his mind is quiet. And so at night, when his mind gets quiet, that's when he can have panic attacks or fear. It's a horrible fear at night that descends on the White House. It's a feeling when you're in his energy of just a horrible panic attacks. When I'm in it, I feel like I'm curled in a ball. I'm having a meltdown. I don't know who I can trust. It feels like a frightened 3-year-old, terrified, doesn't know what to do. But there comes a point when the person who has used whatever techniques to play people and play games to get himself out of particularly unpleasant situations, there comes a point when he knows that he is caught. So last night I had a vision of him like a wolf who is showing his paws. That was the vision. So showing his paws. So on some level, some higher level, I think he knows he's caught. On some deep primordial level. Now, the fact that Nancy Pelosi has already stepped in and is going and visiting troops tells me that this is not just business as usual, which is probably the line that they're going to give people, the public. Oh yeah, that's just normal. But I can't think of a time when Paul Ryan was in his position that he was going and visiting troops. And I mean, he may have, and it just wasn't covered. But this feels different energetically. It feels as if they've caught him. He knows he's caught, and Nancy Pelosi has access to intelligence information. She's third in line to sit in the White House, and that something's about to go down, and that on some level he knows he's caught, and that is what it feels like. And it's a horrible feeling of vulnerability, not knowing who to go to. Somebody help me. If you want to understand it without any emotion attached, and just look at it as a psychologist would look at it, this is somebody who appears to have had a lot of extreme frights at a very early age. This can happen when a person becomes frozen or traumatized to the point where they're in a state of being frozen in, say, a particular age group, like frozen at the age of 3, frozen at the age of 4. And if there's a domineering, aggressive person in the home, maybe Fred Trump, the senior, was aggressive or angry or hard on him, but it's a feeling of terror and fear, and also a feeling that very early on he could not live up to the expectations that were put on him. Now, that's a lot of pressure to put on a little kid. If you are a 3-year-old or if you are a 4-year-old and you've got this angry, aggressive male energy around you, expecting all kinds of things, and you're terrified, the first thing that a child that age does is that they begin to, this is when children learn how to lie, and they begin to realize that the adults cannot read their minds, that the adults don't know what's going on. And so the child begins to lie, and they begin to make up stories. And then what that child may find is that the bigger that the stories entertain, but they also learn that they can maybe put the wool over people's eyes by lying. So it feels to me like a vulnerability, a frightened child, a terrified child, not knowing what to do. The child's been caught, the lies have been caught, and it's absolutely a terrifying sensation, even to the point of feeling like, when I'm in the energy, like I'm going to have a physical collapse from the energy, and the people around me are trying to get me not to collapse. But the only problem with that is that the people that are trying to help me while I'm going through this collapse are themselves informants, are themselves giving depositions. They are meeting with Mueller or have already spoken to Mueller. And so the breakdown is also because he literally has no one to turn to. I get really weird energy around Kushner, even to the point of thinking that he's already cooperating on some level. And then it's just that everyone has spoken to Mueller. There's no one that can be trusted. And he's going down. He's just hired 17 lawyers, so he knows what's about to happen. I keep getting a vision of a debriefing or some kind of major event. And I see British, maybe it's a meeting between the British intelligence agencies and the Americans, but I see some people coming in. So something very serious is going to be happening, and it's not a joke. And the American people are now going to start to find out what's going on. I also feel like this shutdown is partly strategic, that the longer that he can simply sit and not do anything, the infrastructure begins to unravel. There comes a point when the Senate is going to have to override this veto, but how long it will take, I do not know, because if Trump cannot agree to sign the bill and reopen the government, things will begin to fall apart. And the question is, at what point will the Senate, who some of them have been compromised themselves, step forward and say, impeach this president, or override the veto? And that is the point we are at right now. That is the standstill. We are waiting. Mitch McConnell is meeting with senators one-on-one privately in his hideaway, trying to see if he has 13 votes. That is the situation I see right now. All we can do is buckle up and hope he can get to the lucky number 60, or the 2/3. Let's check in on Trump. How's he doing? Let's send him love and light. Nobody wants a 3-year-old, 4-year-old child to be traumatized, crying in a corner in a complete state of terror because he doesn't know what the adults in the room want from him. So the child becomes an entertainer, and he charms, and he seduces, and he entertains. And what we see pathologically that has taken over the planet and the world are the consequences of trauma. That trauma starts with 1 or 2 or 3 severe traumas early in childhood, and then the traumatized person seeks ways to cope, and that only gets him in more trouble, which then causes him to react again in an inappropriate way, which only gets him into more and more trouble. This is the downward spiral of early trauma that we're seeing right now. And unfortunately, we're being forced to look at it through this individual. Obviously, the solution is that we should try not to traumatize people, particularly children. I have a few friends who have adult parents, father who struggles with violence and alcohol addiction, promiscuity, cheating on the mother, etc. And it profoundly changes the nature of children when they grow up in homes like that. Money coming in, movement. I know people are frustrated about. I would be very surprised if this shutdown continues, just because it's a breaking and money coming in. Nancy Pelosi, Trump. Those two don't get along. Things have changed. He's no longer in charge. This is going to start to move very, very quickly now. and I think his goose is cooked. All right, be strong, my little brave soldiers. I just wanted to finish up with a second reading on Trump for today. I think that's all the readings I'm going to do for the day. All right, I just want to say these are my own remote viewings, and they exist in my little brain at night as I meditate, and I have made mistakes, and so will you when you remote. Sometimes we get it wrong, and we need to be humble and admit to that, and nobody's 100% accurate, but if I were going to look at the cards, I would say that I think the Senate may override the veto at this point. And yeah, let's just wait and see what happens. All right, thanks for watching, everyone. We'll see you next time. Bye.